Hello and welcome to another video on Microsoft Fabric. And in today's video, we will discuss how can we do incremental data loading in Microsoft Fabric data warehouse. So use cases in the data warehouse in a table, I want to load the incremental data. And I'm going to take help from Dataflow Gen2 as well as data pipeline the way I wanted to do it. So to do that, let me explain you some incremental strategies which we can take up and what strategy I'm going to showcase you, but you can also try out the other strategies. Now, so today's strategy, let's understand first of all the three strategies which we can have. There could be many ways to do it, but the strategy which we are going to adopt is going to be one of the three. So what happens is we bring in the data into a staging table, and every time we bring in new data and we append it into a fact. So we take a date, we say the data should be greater than that date. The data comes to the staging, we load it to fact, we update that date into the staging, and then we say give us the data more than that date. So that date which was there in the staging. So let's say first time I say data is greater than 2018, data got loaded till let's say 31st March 2019, and next time data should be greater than 31st March 2019, and then the data should get appended to the fact. Now the second way is where you do bring in the data which is more, but from the staging you take the last collection data and you subtract some data. So now there is an overlapping data. It happens when I know my last 1 month of data can update and I don't have a way to update the data. Means I don't have a primary key. See, to update the data I need to have a primary key. If I don't have a primary key in my fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, last 1 month of data probably can update. So I'll bring additional data. Now I have more than 1 month of data available with me. So let's say I load it till 31st March 2019. And so what I'm going to do next time, I'm going to run it from let's say 1st March or from 1st February. Now because I have additional data from 1st February, any data which is there in the staging, minimum date of the staging, I'm going to delete that from the fact. So in the second step, I'm going to delete any data which is there in the fact after a particular date. So let's say 1st Feb 2019, I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to insert the data again. So what would happen? There is no data after the 1st Feb. I delete it and then I insert it. In the third option, now this is the first option where you append only. Second, you delete and append. In the third option, I do have a primary key. Now typically this happens with dimension, not with fact, but I'm showing you this one. So let's assume that we have a primary key and I'm going to show you the data which is very similar to this one, but we are going to do the step one. In this case, what happens is we bring in only the new data and it typically bought based on the update date. So this can be bought based on creation date. This can be bought based on creation date. This typically is bought based on the update date, and date is also important here. Which date you are using to bring in the data. Now in my sample case, I only have one date, but I'm going to show you a mix of the approach which is going to be there, which will help you in executing all these three flows. So what you do is you bring in the data and you load that data to the fact for the first time. Second time when you bring in the data which is greater than the last update date, so data need to be updated, and whatever data is not able to update, we have to insert that. So that's the third strategy. And this is very common across dimension table. Every time you are doing this, you have to have a log table. Basically, we usually create a log table here. That log table maintains what is the data which we have collected in this fact. And typically we update it by using the staging. So whatever data was there in the staging, that's the date, because staging always will have a smaller set of data. So we always update it with the staging. The max date which was available in the staging, and that date is something after which we have to collect. So there is a requirement of a log table which will maintain this. So now how do we implement it into the Fabric ecosystem? So what I'm going to do in the Fabric ecosystem, I'm going to create an empty fact and staging and a log table. Three tables I'm going to create. In the data flow, I'm going to create a staging table only. And I'm going to bring in the log table. I will create a parameter and I'll try to get the data, only the incremental data, into the staging table. For first time, I'm going to give a date which is from where I want to collect the data. So let's say I want to collect data after 2018-0101. So I'm going to give that date into this log table when I insert the first time data. And then I want my ETL to update it to do it. So now what would happen? The Dataflow can bring in the data and can load into the staging, and it can also ensure that it is bringing based on that date. But post that, Dataflow cannot take care. Neither it can take of this append, or neither it can take care of this delete or update. This Dataflow cannot take care. And this is the reason why I'm doing it in data warehouse incremental, because in data warehouse I'm going to do these steps. So I'm going to create a procedure which is going to append this data, and I'm going to do append flow. But the step which I'm going to show is going to be very similar to what you have here in the update flow. So I'm going to show you one statement, and you will be able to design the second one also if you look at those steps. So, and I've tested that delete works there, update works there in the data warehouse. So both the things work here, and you will have one statement that will show you that you will be able to use that kind of statement. Now, so I'm going to create a procedure, and that procedure is going to append the data and going to update the staging table. So when next time the data flow runs in, then the data flow gets a new date, and it will be able to get only the new data for me. But how do I execute these two together? So for that, I'm going to use data pipeline, which is going to call data flow in the first step, and it's going to call out the procedure in the second step. There is no information getting passed from one to another the way I'm designing it right now. And I'm keeping my log table at the target. So what happens, we call these as source and target. So whenever we run our ETLs, we have a source, which is basically the database from where we're bringing the data, and target is something our data warehouse. So log table can be kept here as well as here, depending on who's driving it. So right now the target is going to drive it, so I'm going to keep the log table here. Okay, so let me start this journey. Let me start this journey by going to the Microsoft Fabric, and I'm going to show you that what I've already done. So if I go to Microsoft Fabric, you might see that I already opened a data pipeline here. I'm there on the app.powerbi.com, and some of you who are following me knows how to open it, how to reach pipeline and all those. I'm going to show you these steps, don't worry about it, but I'm showing you that I already executed a pipeline with the data flow as well as the stored procedure. And what these are, I'm going to show you a little bit of information around that. So as you can see, I already loaded the 30,000 rows in my table. I've done it in two ways. I have a procedure to execute for that. And let me show you the procedure. So now let me show you the code which I have. So what I have is basically here is I'm using this append new method. Basically I will going to create a table which is incremental info, where I will have a table name and collection. And there I'm going to insert the first date, which is 2018. And I'm going to ensure that data flow loads data after this date, strictly after this date. Okay. And then what I'm going to do here is basically I'm going to create a fact table and a staging table. So staging table is the first table I'm going to create. Second table I'm going to create a fact table. Then I'm going to create a procedure which is going to load the data from the staging to fact. And to ensure, now this is the flow which we typically do. In the append flow, actually we don't require this statement. We can simply say insert the data from staging to this one. But I've given this statement. This statement is typically executed in update and insert, just to showcase you that yes, we can write down a little bit complex statement. I've done that. So what I've done here is I'm going to insert the data by checking that order number does not exist. And that is why you might have noticed when I written a statement there, I was checking for distinct order number. Count is also equal to my count of rows. It means my order number is a primary key. So that is what I'm doing here. So in this case, I can also write down update statement. And can update work or not? I'm updating my incremental info table, which is basically with the collection date. So what would happen? This, whatever staging has inserted into this one, I'm going to update this. Now this can work for multiple table. I'm doing it for one table. Also, you need to require small change in your data flow when you have multiple table. The one I am going to show. I'm going to tell you what it needs to be done for that. So now let's bring in and go ahead and try this out into the Fabric. So for that, now this time what I'm going to do is I will open a new, let me open a new one. So I'm there in the app.powerbi.com home screen. How I'm going to go about it. So first of all, I go to workspace 01 Fabric. 01 Fabric is the workspace where I'm doing all the stuff, and those who are following the series, you will be able to find it easily. If you have created with me, you will be also having the similar. I'm going to create a fresh new warehouse to teach you all those things. So let me go to here and say new, show all. In the new, we have to use show all, and then you will get this warehouse option here. So once you get this warehouse option, let's create a warehouse. I'm going to call it INCR demo, incremental demo warehouse. I'm going to call it. It's created the warehouse. I need few stuff in this warehouse. I need my staging table. I need my sales table. I need my incremental loading table. So once this warehouse is created, I'm going to create all these tables and they will be empty. There will be no data. We'll query them and check that out also. So warehouse is created, and once we open the schema, you will see it will take a little bit of time for you to see the DBO. But as soon as you are able to see the DBO schema, you will be able to start running your query. So while it is opening, let me bring in these scripts. So I'm going to let me create these three first and show you what happens. Now I run this. So it's created a date time too. You have to remember, I just faced this issue because I was committing a small mistake. I was not giving a precision for date time too. So you have to give a precision with date time too. So please remember that. And I can share these queries also with you. And now let me insert also. So I'm inserting 2018. So my sales have the data from April 20 2018 onwards. So I'm saying, okay, take it from the first 18. So I'm going to say greater than. Then I'm going to create a staging where I'm going to bring in this data. I also need to show from where I'm bringing that data. Okay. So staging table where I'm going to bring that data, and then I have a sales table, fact table where I'm going to merge this data. And I'm using a common statement merge, which means append, update, delete, insert, all the things, whatever we wanted to do. We just wanted to merge the two data, and now we will have our tables inside the DBO here, and you can click on them so to see view the data. So this one should show only one row, but if you have multiple tables, you can go ahead and do that also. Small modification will help you out. Both the other tables are empty. Now from where I'm bringing in data, so I have to show you I'm bringing this data from my Postgres, and I'm going to show you Postgres first time here in the Fabric series. First time I'm going to use it. So first time when I done my this one, I ran this statement to create it from my sales table. Again, my sales table has the same sales table. It's having 30,000 rows, but I created a sales fact which actually I in the two parts I bring in the data. So right now my sales fact do have the 30,000 rows. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to truncate it. So I don't need to create, drop and create. So I'm going to truncate this one, and you can see there is no data now. Now I'm going to insert data till 1st January, 31st January. Okay. So I'm saying I cannot say this. Let me truncate this. I cannot have both of them true. So truncate them. I'm going to say strictly less than this thing, because the second one I'm going to insert is greater than equal to. Then I need to know how many rows are inserted, because that is what I'm going to validate at my. So 16687 rows should get inserted first time. After that I'm going to append the data here also in the Postgres, which will make it 30,000. And once it becomes 30,000, I should have same 30,000 rows there in my data warehouse or warehouse. So we are ready. We created a warehouse. We have the tables to take the data in. Fine. So sales fact data need to be merged with the sales data in my Fabric warehouse. So let's go to Fabric again. Now in the Fabric, what we wanted to do here is to want to bring the data. To bring the data, I'm going to use Dataflow Gen2, and in Dataflow Gen2, I'm going to use my own incremental logic. And to do that, I have already done something in the past which I have tested it out, and I'm going to repeat the same steps here. I'm going to show you some things which might not work pretty well, so you need to take care of that. So again, in the 01 Fabric workspace I came in, you know the step how to do that. Now there is only data flow here. I need Dataflow Gen2 where I can give the target. So Dataflow Gen2, I click on show all and I come to Dataflow Gen2, and in the Dataflow Gen2, I'm going to bring in those things. Now I already created a Postgres SQL connection. So it will only ask me for IP address first time and the name, and it should do post that. But let me go ahead and bring in the data. So bring in the data from where? I'm going to bring in data from two places. One is the PostgreSQL and second is the data warehouse itself, where I'm going to write it down also. Fine. So I go to more, and in the more in the data source, it give me option for PostgreSQL. There are too many options, so I'm going to search out. I got PostgreSQL. Here my connection is not encrypted, so I'm going to use unencrypted connection. It's going to give me option here at the below, so unencrypted. So this is what I'm going to uncheck. But let me start by giving the IP address and all those details. So these are the details you have to give: server, database, connection detail, gateway, and all those things you have to give. Let me start giving those details. So let me give my IP address, my database name, and it is already picked up the connection, but you can give the rest of the detail, and I have to check that unencrypted. So it's going to, when I'm going to press it, may give me an error, and I need to uncheck that if it doesn't work out. Okay, fine. This time it seems like it worked out. So now I have so many tables. What I need to search is sales underscore data, sales data, sales fact. This is what I wanted because this is the one which is having 19,000 rows, 16,000 rows. So that's what I'm going to bring in. So I got this, and I can do certain things to change the data type and everything, but here everything seems fine to me. Fine. This seems fine to me, and I can go ahead and push this into my warehouse. So I can go here. Now there is no option for warehouse right now, so I'm going to use the alternate one which I'm using for quite some time. It worked successfully, but it doesn't mean that that's the best warehouse connector. So for some time now I'm using this Azure Synapse Analytics SQL connection. And to use this, what I go do is I go to my warehouse, and in the warehouse I look for the prop settings here on the top. And once I go to the setting, I get this URL, long URL. I copy this, I come back here and I put it here. Then the second step is I can, whatever name I have given for this warehouse, like INDR demo instead of INCR demo, I can give that. So let me press next. Now I want to use the existing table, not the new table. So I'm going to press existing table here. I go to INDR demo, by mistake I kept that name, and I want to say sales staging, and it shows me this table, and I say next, and it should show me the mapping. If something is wrong, we can correct out. You can see the column name at the source is something which we can modify, and as you can see, they are pretty much in line with each other, because I've taken out the script from the PostgreSQL, came here and created. Now the challenge here is going to bring the entire data. How? Because I'm going to append the data. How it's going to bring in the next data? So for that, those who know data flows, they know we go here and say, okay, bring in the new data. So how do we bring in new data? So we say, okay, we click here, and then we go ahead and say date time filter, and we say greater than something, isn't it? But for that we use parameters. But I don't have parameters, so what I'm going to say, okay, I need one more table, and we will need parameter. But so what I'm saying, okay, I need this data from where? I need this data from another database, which is warehouse, because warehouse contain that information. So I go here, I do the next, and I go here into the 01 fabric, and I bring in, I go to INDR demo, incremental info table is the one which I need, and I say create. Now here in this query also, I'm going to modify it a little bit. So I got the table, I don't need a table, I only need a date. So I go here, I go to the advanced editor. Now this is something which you might have to modify a little bit based on your requirement, because I'm going to bring in one table. So it is easy for me, because I'm going to say max or sales. You can filter it if you want to create, because you need to have parameters. If you need different parameters, like if your ETL always load till that date, you don't need different parameters, you can use one. But in my case, I have one table, so I can manage it by saying, so this is what going to do here. I'm going to say list.max here. So I only want to return the date. So you have to filter the previous tab, take the sales table and do it, but I only have one table, so I can take advantage of that. And I go here and I say I need max of column name, and I'll let me bring in the column name from here. This is my column name, collection date, and I need to put a comma here in the last line, comma, new step where I'm saying list.max, and I need to return this max. So it's going to return me a date. I'm going to show you step by step what going to happen. So it's a date time kind of variable. So what happens here is I go here. Now we go here and we say, okay, you go and you say date time filter, and you say greater than, strictly greater than something else. So date time filter is after or after. So we say after, and it asks for select a query, and I select ANCR info, and I say okay. Now the thing which I have to observe here is I have to go here and I say continue and check it out. This step will be evaluated by data source. So the way I have done it there and way I have done it here is different, because there I created a parameter also to check that out. But here what I am doing, I am directly taking the answer from the query and putting it in. And this step will be evaluated by the data source is really important. Source data will be evaluated because it means the query folding is happening, because if this doesn't come in, it means it is not going to fold the query. And if I go here and click on this view data source query, it do show me, see, so it's evaluated that right now whatever value I have, and it has given me this value. So if it is showing a data source query, then only you can trust it. It is going to run, going to fold this query where on the data source, because incremental it is really important that it should fold the query. If it is not folding the query, the entire effort of you doing this is not going to be beneficial. Now you understood why it is needed, why I have done this, and that's why I created a single variable. You can create few variable if you have few one, and that could be a better approach to have that query working in such a manner. You can find out more generic ways to do it, but please remember this should fold. If it doesn't show you folding, and that's what happened with me initially when I was testing, it was not showing it. So I done it couple of steps and make sure it does fold. So it should show me when I right click here and I go, it should show me view data source query. If it is not showing, it might not fold. Now I'm pretty much satisfied that this is going to work for me, and I have 16,000 rows. Which now what would happen very first time, the moment I execute this query, the data flow is not only going to save this but also going to execute it. So it means my staging will have data. So let me publish this. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I'll explain you in between while this is happening how we are going to handle once this data loading is happening. So as you see, this has come. So there is a rolling happening here. So it means it is testing the data flow right now. Once the testing of the data flow is done, that means the publish is complete. You will see the rolling shift here on this right hand side after my name. These are the places which is going to occupy here, and some of the data flow fail. You can see in the data flow 3 failed, so it's coming here. Now if the data flow is successfully loaded, like this one is getting loaded, we will get the data into the staging, and after that we need a step to move the data from staging to the fact. Now you can see it's already running, so let it load the data, and I'm hopeful it finish without any error. If it doesn't, I'm going to run it again. So while this is finishing, let's prepare to load the data into the fact table. Now once it is prepared, it will show us the data here, and right now staging is also empty, fact is also empty. Now we need a procedure to load this data and also update the INCR info, isn't it? So I'm going to bring in the code now here, which is a procedure which I'm going to create, and what this procedure is going to do, I'm going to explain you again. So what this procedure is doing, this procedure is going to load the data into the sales table. Right now it is empty. We are going to check this out and going to load it. It's going to load the entire data from the staging, which is not matching with the order number. So I'm doing a left join with the staging. So I'm treating the staging table as the main table, and I'm doing a left join with the fact table. Whatever data is not present in the fact where order number is null, that's what I'm going to insert. So I'm doubly sure, I'm making it doubly sure, though only I'm appending that I don't insert the order number which already present. But actually what happens is we do this step whenever we have a primary key. We also write down an update statement post that, which updates the data which is again coming in from the same order number. So this is your update date flow, but I don't have an update date, so I'm only using the append date flow. I know there is no data, and update works here. I have already given you the statement. So what update is going to do? Update is going to say update dbo.incremental info collection date, select max sales date from the staging. I can take it from the staging. I don't have to go till fact, the bigger table, because staging already get that date which for which I got the successful data. Okay, and from there I have to update. Now the one thing which I'm not taking care, I'm not doing any kind of error handling right now here. If the first statement failed, the second one should not work. I'm expecting if it fails, it should fail both the statement, but while I was doing it, it first time do failed and it did not updated the second one. So you need to do little bit of error handling here. Right now I'm avoiding that to show you this flow quickly, and I'm going to run this. So it's not going to execute any statement. Now this is one error you might face. Now the reason for it, this is case sensitive. I have a which is in capital here, and then other a's are small, so I need to make them small. Now when I compile it, it got compiled. Now before I go ahead and execute this and test it out, I need to make sure that my data flow 15 completed successfully or not. Now it has errored out. Let me show. It does show these days why it is erroring out. Let me do one thing. I have done it in a little bit different manner. So incr info. Okay, so I see a doubt here. What I've done various experiment, and I also find out that the way I have done in Dataflow 14 was not giving me the data which is basically only the incremental rows. So finally, after doing few permutation and combination, I came up with the final set of steps which I can do. So one of the thing which I've done here is basically I went ahead, and what I need to do is basically I'm going to convert this into a table. So I went there and I say, okay, fine. Uh, I will want it to make it as a table. So I say it's to table. So I converted this into table, but the moment I go to this one, it will start erroring out because now it can't take. So what we have to do here is basically we got a column there. So now the column one, we can call it as, let's say, max date. So we need this max date column from there. So we go here and we say, okay, we need max. So we say incr underscore info and max date. Okay, now this will also not work because there are multiple values here. So what we have to do is we have to do list dot max, and the moment I do list dot max here and I enter it, so here I can see that it is working. Let me refresh the data. So it's working, but you start seeing the red color because it's not the step will be evaluated outside the data source. That's what I don't want. So now what I have to do is I need to do little bit of change here. I will have to go to the advanced editor, and here in the advanced editor what I have to do is I have to introduce one step here where I'll say underscore max underscore date equals to this one, and I'll also do here date time dot from, just for the sake of data type, and I put here this one. Now so what I'm doing here is I'm bringing in this into a variable first, and then I'm passing that variable into my list, and a comma is missing, so I'm going to give the comma. So what I'm expecting, it should also show me a green color, and it is showing me a green color. Now once I execute this, I should be able to see the same number of rows which I have at the source. Okay, so let's go ahead and publish this out. So and wait for this to complete, and we need to observe a few things. Now this one is running, so first it will run. Now if it fails, then it means still we are missing some steps. So last time what happened is we allowed the direct variable to pass, the query variable to pass. That did not work in. So what we have done this time, we have taken that query variable into a variable as a step, and now we are using that particular step to pass the value to the one. So publish has completed, it means it's going to execute. And now the thing which we are hoping, is it going to give us the data in the data flow without any error. Now I have done little bit different step in data flow 14, but what I found out later when I checked it out, that those steps were giving me complete data in the next step, because somewhere the incremental logic became static. So I have experimented again and I tried out few combination, and this one is the combination which work out. I'm not saying that you cannot find a better combination. You may be able to find a better combination to find out an incremental date and pass it back to the query. Maybe we just write down another source inside that query also, that we have also done few times. Those who are watching my videos, in the merge query we have actually get the two source and then we passed back the, we have combined those sources together. So these type of things you can do. So now this is taking little bit of time, and let it complete. And after the complete, we are expecting some 16,000 odd rows in our staging, and we will run the procedure. So now it has completed, and I just wanted to showcase that these kind of challenges you might face when you are doing it, these things. So it's always better that you go ahead and do little bit more experiment with these things and see what can work out. We can go to the SQL staging. If I click on that, it should show me some data, and it's showing me data, but I don't know how much data it has. So I need to query and match that number. So I've already created a procedure here, but I'm here. I have this one. So let me copy. Let me remove all these, isn't it? Control A, delete, select star from, or I'll say count star. We are not bothered about that, isn't it? 16,16687, and what was our PG admin showing same number. So PG admin, and this is in sync. Now the second thing, is there a data in the my sales table? Let's check it out. There is no data in my sales table. 0 rows. Now what we need to do is we need to execute this procedure. So we select this procedure, and what we are going to say, exec. We are not going to do like this. We can schedule it. I'm going to show that procedure to you later, how we are going to use data pipeline for this now. So we have to test it before that this procedure is working, because if this procedure is not working, there's no benefit of doing that. So is executing right now. What happened with me when I first time executed, it take a lot of time and it do failed. So it may happen like that, but make sure that you executed it second time. I do face some issue first time. Then what I done is I deleted the data from my sales table and then again ran this procedure again, and that time it ran pretty fast. Once that is done, we are going to go ahead and create a data pipeline where we are going to have a data flow and this procedure, and we also need additional data in our sales table to bring in from there. So let it complete. So it has failed with the almost similar reason it has failed last time, but let me show you this. It has loaded the data here, but my concern was here because it did not updated this date. So let me go back to my queries. So I go to my query, and I'm going to do this step, and I'm going to run this again. I would have preferred to update that, but I would like my procedure to completely run that. So I'm going to say delete. Truncate do not work, so I would prefer to truncate, but as truncate doesn't work, delete from. And the reason I'm doing it, because my staging table did not get updated, and that is must for me. So right now I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to run this procedure again. And that's what happened with me the second time. It did run fast, and it did. I'm not sure the first time why it taken so much of time and error out. It took just 3 seconds and completed it. And I have deleted the records in between, and now let's go ahead and do that. So we are getting the same number of records, and let's go and look at the data, and you can see it's 190130. Now we have the additional data. We're going to create a pipeline and bring in the data. But before I go to the Postgres SQL here. Let me query the data again in the PostgreSQL. I'm there in the PostgreSQL. This is the same data I have. Now I'm saying greater than or equal to. What I'm expecting is 30,000 rows. It got executed. The data got inserted. I have 30,000 rows. So now my fact should only have 30,000 rows. Everything executing fine. Now data flow is working. Procedure is working. I'm going to combine them into a pipeline. So I go here and let me refresh this page. This is the second page which we opened while the data flow is running. And one thing you should remember that you can't edit a data flow while it is running. So now all set. So before I go ahead and create the data pipeline, I want to ensure that the date is actually moved in the data flow. So I would like to go ahead in the data flow 15 and would like to check what is happening to my date. And if I go ahead here, I would see that the date actually has moved to the 30th Jan 2019. That's the max date available in my staging, isn't it? So I got a max date in my staging. And if I go here in the sales table, the new data will come because will refresh this and you can see the new data is coming. But the thing which I want to ensure and which is basically on this right hand side, that I want this green which is saying the query folding is happening, means it's going to the source. And second thing, I can right click on this one and I can say view data source query, which also should show me a step and a query where I can see the query step is getting folded back to the source. So I'm pretty much satisfied with that. So let me cross this and now create the data pipeline. Go to the pipeline. We need to create a pipeline. So again, new in the 01 fabric. Again, we are going to new, and in the new, let's go to show all. And from there, we are going to bring in a data pipeline. So, and this pipeline is INCR, ETL, DF, DP, DF, DP, and proc. So we are using data flow, we are using data pipeline, we are using proc. Three things. So now this is something which is the beauty of data pipeline, that we can call different stuff and then do it. Now there are ways and means to pass the values, and doing it using only data pipeline, we will explore that later. So I said add a pipeline activity. What activity I want to use? In the middle there is an option, add a pipeline activity. Those of you did not notice that. So add a pipeline activity, that's what I'm going to click, and in there I'm going to say data flow. Which data flow? So I go, you have to click here if it is not selected. You do, I can keep the name same. I say I have to refresh it and I should get data flow 15. So I got data flow 15, and on the success of the data flow 15, I want to insert one more activity, and now there is that activity which is not available here. I go to the activities and I'm going to say I'm going to call a store procedure. So and I drag this success here and they say okay, once it is success, do execute a store procedure. I click on this, so it's allowed me to do the setting, and I say I'm going to do it from workspace. Again, INCDR demo is something which I need. Store procedure name. If it doesn't give, just refresh it. Once you refresh, you should see the load sales. This is what we need. So this is my pipeline which is ready. I go to the home, I say save. So these are the steps which I'm going to do: save, validate, and run. Always. Now I'm validating this pipeline. It says your pipeline has been validated. Now I'm running it. After this run, I'm expecting 30,000 rows. Now just before we do that, we validate the date is more. Everything is fine. The procedure working fine. Data flow working fine. Let's run it. So it's going to create a two-step process. Now step 1 is the executing of data flow. Step 2 is executing a procedure. Now right now there is no communication which is required between these two. Means I'm not passing the variables. I'm just saying if number 1 is success, go ahead and execute the number 2. Initially what would happen here, it will show you this one, and very soon it's going to start going to show you details here in the output. So we want to execute data flow, first step. Second step is the procedure, and if both of them are successfully run, we should be able to see 30,000 rows in our fact table. We should be able to see only the additional rows in the staging. So staging will contain additional row. The fact will contain complete row. We have to test that out, and we are going to do it, because remember, we do have a code to handle even if it is bringing more data. We have handled it. So it will keep 30,000 rows because it's not going to entertain that IDs. So we do have to check how much data staging is going to bring for us, because we are expecting that it's going to pick up 2019 one as the parameters are going to do it. So let's see, does that happen or not. Let me click here to see the details. Now it started showing me the details. The data flow is in progress. It's executing, and once the data flow is completed, you can see the execution sign here also. Once that is completed, we should see the store procedure sign here. So both data flow and procedure is completed. Now time has come that we go ahead and check the number of rows we have on the SQL endpoint of our warehouse. So let's query the number of rows here. So what is the number of rows in my fact table? That is 30,000 rows. And what is the number of rows in my staging table? That is only 13,313. These are the only incremental rows. So it means the incremental has successfully loaded the additional rows, and those additional rows has been merged into our sales fact table or the sales table. It means we are able to successfully run the incremental load. Now we would also like to go back and see our data flow. Is the data flow started reflecting that date or not? And in the next time when I'm going to run it, is it what is going to give it to me? So if you go ahead and click here, you will be able to see that it has picked up the next date. Now the next date is the max data which I have. It means I need to now find out more data and insert into it. But now you know, now your dates can have a timestamp. My data doesn't have a timestamp, but your dates can have a timestamp. Now I already told you the three methodologies which you can work out to make sure that it works either in the delete insert mode or only append mode. Right now we are using only append mode, but the query which we are using is in the insert update mode. So you can also run the insert update mode. So you go ahead and try it out and do let me know what kind of challenges you are facing. Are you able to complete the incremental ETL with the ease or not? So this is a combination that we have done. So we have taken data warehouse or warehouse. For that we have loaded data using the data flow, and that data flow we supposed to run incremental. So we taken the help of a procedure. We want to combine that procedure along with the data flow gen2. So what we have taken we have taken here, and what we have done here basically, we have taken the help from data pipeline to make sure these two are running together. We would explore opportunities, how can we do something using data pipeline only, but that's for another video. So do let me know what else you want me to cover in this fabric series. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you.